A bird died in the garden. It's lying motionless on the ground. And the other birds just stopped at that moment. They're just watching. But this isn't just a simple glance. Most people think animals don't understand death. For them, death is just an end, an unimportant event that requires no response. But researchers have completely disproven this over the last decade. Birds see death. They feel it. And some species respond to it in ways that deeply affect people. Today I'm going to tell you what really happens when a bird dies, how science has documented this, and we'll go through one by one why these behaviors leave you with an unexpected feeling. Stay until the end, because what I'll share in the fifth section describes a behavior that researchers considered impossible for years. And once you've heard it, you'll never look at a bird lying on the ground in your garden the same way again. In 2012, researcher Teresa Iglesias from the University of California conducted an experiment. She placed a realistic-looking stuffed crow in a city park and waited. Within a few minutes, nearby crows gathered. They didn't fly away. They didn't cry out. They just gathered around it and watched, silently, for a long time. Researchers gave this behavior a name, funeral behavior. But this isn't unique to crows. Ducks, swallows, chickadees, many bird species come together around the body of a fellow member, without flying away, without making noise, just standing there. Why does this happen? Researchers focus on two theories. The first is that this is a learning behavior. Birds gather around the body of a dead fellow member trying to understand what the danger was, what killed it here. Am I also passing through this path? The second theory is more unsettling. Some researchers suggest that this behavior doesn't involve pure cognitive processing, but contains a kind of social grief response. It hasn't been proven yet, but it hasn't been disproven either. Now I want to ask you this. Are the two the same? When a bird gathers around the death of its own kind, is this an entirely pragmatic threat assessment, or is there something else inside it too? A study on the western scrub jay addressed this question directly. Researchers placed the body of a scrub jay near a scrub jay colony. The other birds first gave alarm calls. Then they came together. Then, and this is the unexpected part, they completely stopped eating for about 25 minutes. 25 minutes. For a small bird, this is a massive energy budget. Not eating while hungry is a behavior that goes far beyond threat assessment. Researchers explained this as follows. The birds weren't only assessing danger, they were registering that something had changed. And this registration affected their behavior for hours. This section will truly surprise you. Some birds touch their dead fellows. They nudge them gently with their beaks. They make contact with their wings. They walk around them. Sometimes they do this over and over. This behavior has been most documented in the corvid family, crows, jays, ravens, but not only in them. In an observation of a Florida jay, it was recorded that the mate of the deceased individual accompanied the body for hours, occasionally touching it gently with its beak. Researchers called this object examination, clinical, cold, but when you see the scene, you feel that those words fall short. Because this behavior exists in humans too. When we lose someone we love, we want to touch them one last time. We check whether it's real, or we're simply saying goodbye. Science tells us we didn't invent this impulse. It was innate from the beginning. In 2006, researcher Mark Beckhoff was observing a pair of geese. One of the pair died. The other didn't leave immediately. It stayed by the body all day. The next day too. On the third day, it was still there. Eventually, it left. But researchers documented that its behavior changed for weeks. It ate less. It kept away from other geese. It fell behind the group on flights. Beckhoff described this behavior as grief. And this sparked debate in the scientific community, because grief is not just feeling the loss, it's being aware of the loss, understanding that a future no longer exists. Is this level of cognitive awareness possible in birds? There is still no definitive answer, but the data continues to move in this direction. Everything I've described so far, funeral gatherings, stopping eating, touching, grief-like behaviors, these are all documented studies published in peer-reviewed journals. But what I'm about to tell you now is different. Researchers have observed that some bird species leave an object for their dead fellows. In a long-term observational study on ravens, a raven was repeatedly recorded leaving a small piece of branch beside a deceased group member. Not randomly, deliberately, to the same spot, again and again. Is this a gift, a sign, a ritual? Researchers aren't sure yet, but they say this. This behavior is too consistent to be explained by coincidence, and this consistency leaves the kind of question that unsettles us. If a bird leaves an object beside a dead fellow, does this mean that bird understands that something represents something? Does it know that death is permanent, or is this still instinct? Science continues to ask this question. And with each new study, the answer becomes increasingly less clear. The next time you see a bird on the ground in your garden, stop. Look around. Where are the other birds? What are they doing? Are they silent, or are they singing? Are they approaching or moving away? Because in that moment, you may be witnessing a living example of a behavioral pattern millions of years old. A life has ended, and the others registered it, in their own ways, in their own languages, with their own rituals. We didn't invent mourning, we simply gave it names. Tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment like this? Have you seen other birds gather around a dead bird, or a single bird waiting beside one lying on the ground? Tell me. I read all of them. See you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.